What's up, guys? Let a few of you all walk into the room here, and then we'll get started. I'm trying to do my best to not take up all your time tonight, guys. I know that we have families to tend to and things that we would rather be doing than sitting here talking about Joe Biden. So I'm going to try to make this as quick as I possibly can. Obviously, what we're going to be doing is going over the executive order on reducing gun violence and making our community safer. Haha, LOL, chuckle. I laugh when I read that. Let me, again, I try to give everyone kind of an opportunity to kind of roll into the room for a minute. So we'll continue to just sit here and chit chat for a quick second before we get into the meat of all this. I will be going into a little bit of detail and some commentary about some of the things that I see in this executive order that Joe Biden has put out today. I will say this, I wouldn't get too terribly alarmed with this. A lot of this is posturing by the White House. And I believe that you're probably going to see, more than anything, this is an effort to corral his voters, his base. You guys will remember that just a couple of days ago, and we talked about it at length last night on the Think Town podcast, that with this whole thing that he did, the debacle with ruining gas prices and the economy, he's got to now start shifting gears a little bit to try to regain his base and to get people to actually like him, because everybody hates him right now. So he did a little switcheroo on the Alaska drilling thing. First, he said that all this land would be off limits. Then he came right back the next day and said that we're going to increase drilling here in Alaska. So he's like trying to play to both sides, which all that does in many cases is just ruin both sides and piss them both off. So nevertheless, welcome everybody into the room. I'd like to do a couple of quick shout outs real quick. A bunch of you guys are recognizing here, Rights or Not Tradition, Chris 1911, Douglas Fox, Ryan Monk, good to see you, bud. Round one, Daniel Lynch, Dudley the Sentinel, let's see, Jay Atwell, Mike Yu, good to see you, buddy. Ron, Charles Nadu, Two Feathered Channel, Chupacabra, I'm sorry. Is that R Flet, Zonti Misfit, Douglas Fox may have said that already. Rights Not Tradition, Michael Dorame, and guys, I'll try to do my best to keep up with everything as we kind of get rolling here in the comment section. Okay, first of all, what I have on the screen here, and let me just give you the big screen of it here. This is coming straight from Biden's website, the White House website. This is what they put out after. Earlier this morning, we had the notes that came from the White House stating, hey, guys, we're going to be putting this out today and we're going to be doing all this. But we didn't have the level of detail that we kind of expected. We knew they weren't going to release that until after Biden spoke anyway. So we have that now. So I'm going to use their website to kind of scroll through here and go by my notes as well to follow along with you all. So let me grab this and let's see. I'm going to scroll all the way down because a lot of this is just pomp and stupidity. Let's see here. I'm going to do my best to show you what I am reading. Let's see. Administration. Okay, yeah, this one here kind of tickled me a little bit. I got to highlight this to show you what I'm talking about. Somebody knows they're doing something wrong whenever they have to put, it is a policy of my administration that executive departments and agencies will pursue every legally available and appropriate action to reduce gun violence, because they know this is their way of playing the Jedi mind trick on you and saying that they are using every legal and available appropriate action. So they're trying to tell you that it's legal what they're doing and that it's appropriate, when it's exactly the opposite of both legal and appropriate. So I thought that was a little bit comical, but sad that the, quote, leader of the free world is lying to your face. Let's see. Let me go all the way down to section 2. That's where my next note is. Actually, it's in the end of section 1. Yep, same thing. This was just within existing authority. You'll notice I put that out there also. I'm highlighting that because I want you guys to see the play on words that they're doing. They're trying to convince you that what they're doing is legitimate, it's legal, and they're saying that they have the authority to do everything. It's funny how they call themselves out by drawing attention to these things. That's their way of saying, "Hey, look, I'm doing this appropriate, legal, and I have the authority." When they're pretty much, it's like the kid saying, "I didn't break the window," when he's standing there with the rock in his hand. So let me roll to the where we get into the meat of this. Okay, let me get down to section 3. Okay, I'm going to be reading this section right here. Additional agency actions to reduce gun violence. And again, I mean, I'm not going to do the whole quotation thing with my fingers every time they say something stupid like gun violence or assault weapons or whatever. It's implied, right? You guys know that. Clarify the definition of who is engaged in the business of dealing in firearms and thus required to become federal firearms licenses, FFLs, as we all call them, in order to increase compliance with the federal background check requirement for firearm sales, including by considering a rulemaking as appropriate and consistent with applicable law. So essentially what they're wanting to do here is this is their backdoor way of getting to what they like to call universal background checks. They float the lie out there that we don't have background checks, which we all know that we do. Any of us who have purchased any guns in the last however many years since the 80s or whatever, we fill out background checks. We always do. Now, if you're selling or loaning a gun to a friend, family member, some kind of a cohort, whatever, you don't have to do that. Those sales are exempt depending on what state you're in. We're talking about free states. I will say this, anytime I talk about something that is permissible or not the case or is the case, I'm speaking of it from a free state, not behind the enemy lines in some of these other states out there. So we all know that private sales have always been exempt, rightfully so. They should be. In fact, we shouldn't have to fill out background checks at all, if you ask me, but that's just me. So they float that lie that we need universal background checks. They call it a gun show loophole. There is no existing loophole. There's no existing loophole. When you go to a gun show, every one of you guys knows that every FFL in that building who's selling firearms still fills out a background check at that gun show. The thing that they like to refer to as being the loophole, because they're either lazy, ignorant, or they're lying, is that you and I that go to a gun show can, just like if we were anywhere in a McDonald's parking lot, in our backyard, in our front yard, at the Civic Center, wherever you want to go, have a private transfer between you and somebody else. Perfectly legal if you don't think or know that that person is a prohibited person, right? Again, in a free state. That's where they claim there's a gun show loophole, because I go to a gun show carrying whatever rifle or shotgun I may want to get rid of, and somebody catches me and says, "Hey, what you want for today? I'll take $500 for it." I sell it to them. No background check takes place. It shouldn't have to. It's a private sale, right? Neither one of us are FFLs. Neither one of us are federal firearms licensed dealers. So that's perfectly legal. What they're trying to do here, where they say clarify the definition, they're wanting to put a more stringent definition out there that's going to name us as people doing business of selling guns. Now, I want to do this because this is really important to me. I get stupid blowback a lot of times, and I want people to know what's going on. I want you to see my eyes on this. Okay, I have put videos out before on this very thing, and I have said that they are going to say, using their own wording in this, that if you sell one gun or two gun, you are in the business of selling guns. I've got videos out there, more than one out there. In fact, I think I put one out in the summer whenever that John Cornyn bill came out, the last major gun control that we had. And I have stated that their whole purpose for doing this is to say you can't sell a gun, because if you do and you make a dime off of it, you are technically in the business of selling a gun. And I have had people push back on me and say, "Oh, that's not true. That's not true. You're twisting their words." What they really mean is, if you are in business, trying to actually have a business of selling guns, that's when you have to get an FFL. And I have argued with people about this, and I've said that is not true. You are giving them the faith that you think that that's what they mean, that you think they're going to be honest with this wording and speak on this and act on this reasonably and with common sense. I have less confidence in the federal government. I know their track record. I know their path and how they have lied and how they have done things in the past. Well, guess what? Guess who's right? Once again, these people are trying to set it to where exactly what I said, that if you sell a gun and you took money, you received money in exchange for that gun, that you are technically in the business of selling guns. So that's what they meant all along. This is not some new thing that they said, aha, we got this in writing. Maybe we can exploit this. They did that with the full intention of exploiting it. It's just that people were too stupid to realize that's what they were doing. People wanted to believe the best in them. Oh, they would never do that to us. Are you kidding me? Were you born yesterday? This is what they meant all along, and this is what they're showing us. They told us this from the beginning. Nobody wanted to listen. It's out there now. Now they're wanting to say that this is their hint leading to, well, if you sell a gun and you make any money off of that, I mean, we're probably going to have to consider you doing the business of selling firearms. So, we require an FFL for that. Then when they get the FFL, get you to apply for that FFL, now they've got you under their thumb, because their biggest thing that they're doing right now is they all have internal goals of putting as many of these FFLs out of business as they possibly can. Don't fall into their traps, folks. Words mean something. If there's ever an interpretation of a word that can be used in the wrong way, assume it will be used in the wrong way, and never assume that's not really what they meant. If it's in wording, that's what they meant. Let's see. Let's skip down to 3 here. This is a little interesting one here. Publicly released to the fullest extent permissible by law, inspection reports of FFL dealers and dealers cited for violations of the law. Okay, essentially what that is that's going to do 2 things. One, that's going to make public and allow people to see what FFLs have failed various inspections. Now we're talking about crossing T's, dotting I's. Maybe somebody scratches something out on a 4473 they're filling out, which that's not prohibited by the ATF. Maybe somebody forgets to sign their 4473. Maybe somebody, checks off the wrong box, scratches that out and checks the other one off. There's a number of things that you're supposed to start over when you make a mistake on your 4473 when filling it out. I actually had to fill it out 3 times last week because they've changed the 4473, and now there's an additional question on there that you're used to not answering. So I didn't answer it, or excuse me, I answered it. I answered it wrong. I was like, okay, well, let me go back and reread this because their wording is ambiguous, obviously. So they set these traps out there for you to fall into. By releasing this, they're calling this negligence. They're basically saying that if you're failing inspections, that you're negligent. This is an opinion of an ATF agent. You're at the mercy of an ATF agent that already hates you because you're a law-abiding gun owner and you're a free person. Their full and only job is to make your life miserable if you're an FFL. They are not your friend. They're not supposed to be your friend. They're supposed to be just the opposite of that. They're supposed to be your enemy, and they're supposed to catch you doing something. And if they can, they're supposed to put you out of business and your family can go hungry. Their job is literally to put you out of business. That's not on their job description, but that's what their full intent and goal is. So they're expecting to do that. So now by saying that, oh, Paul was negligent, he knew better. He knew that person should have signed that 4473 when he filled it out, and he didn't make them, not considering it an oversight. It's negligence on my part. Like I forgot, not that I forgot. I failed to make them. Like I did not want that person to sign the 4473, so I purposely let them not sign it and take the gun with them, even though they passed the background check. Everything was fine. Let's not forget that a background check was performed and the person passed it. The only reason why the FFL is getting garbage about this is because somebody forgot to sign it or some clerical mistake on it. That's where now they can say this, and in the rest of this that Joe Biden is doing, where he's trying to make it to where, and I'll get more on this later, where the general public can sue firearms manufacturers for stupidity of other people, this is also one of those ways that they can sue the gun company, the gun store, by saying, well, our records show that you were negligent. These records are now public. So when John Q over here gets shot by a gun from somebody that was stolen out of somebody else's vehicle, and they trace it back to that firearm shop or store, now they can say, aha, our records show that you were negligent. So this is part of the lawsuit. You'll know that anytime there's a lawsuit, everybody that had a hand in anything, whether you were guilty or not, will be brought in there, because the attorneys are trying to get money from every possible source that they can in a lawsuit. So all this means is those records are going to be made public. So now they can say this company has at least one or two different instances where they were negligent. So we're going to include them in the lawsuit. This is all meant to put gun shops out of business. Also, we've talked just in small bits and pieces various times about ESGs, right? The ESG grading system. ESG grading system is essentially a kind of like a credit score, if you will, for greenies, for hippies, for tree huggers. It's a global thing, and it's essentially put out there to grade a company. And it's a lot more prominent outside the United States. They're dabbling in the States right now, but they're really popular in Europe, where a company, if they're doing the right thing, if they're replacing their carbon footprint by planting trees in the frickin' Amazon tree forest or something. They're putting bones in their noses and dancing in circles to cancel out their carbon emissions. Maybe they're hiring more transgendered, basket weaving, limping people with a lisp, and now they're getting credit because, oh, look at me, I'm inclusive. I don't care about my company running well. I just care about what you think about my company. And look at this person that I just hired. I would have never hired them normally, but look at them. All I care about is the fact that this lady has a beard. So I get credit. I get positives on my ESG score. It's essentially a virtue signaling score. The benefit to that with companies is that if you have a good enough ESG score by their standards, not yours, then you can actually take out a loan with some of these international banks out there, and not only pay 0 to no interest on those loans, you can actually get a loan with negative interest. That's right. I said negative interest. What that means is you can take out a loan and make money off of it. You can take out a loan and make interest off of your own loan if your ESG score is high enough. Why does that matter in this instance? It matters because these companies right here will get a bad ESG score. So whenever they need money, let's say another COVID hits or some BS like that the government drops on its people and stamps down on the economy, these people won't be able to get loans, because these lending institutions will now see all these public records, and they'll see these quote, negligent firearms companies out there in firearm stores that have a record of negligent stuff on their record from the ATF, a federal organization, and they will deny these loans to these very innocent and very capable people simply because of clerical errors in the way the administration right here is attempting to put these gun companies and these gun stores out of business. Very sad, sickening, and that's what we have right now with the Biden administration. Very, very sad. Let's see here. I want to roll down to one of the things. Let's see. This is B here. Yeah. One of the things they're wanting to do is, this is just money thrown at something. They're commissioning the Secretary of Defense, Attorney General, Secretary of Homeland Security, blah, 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 all these stupid, in fact, Secretary of Education, that should not even be a federal organization, but it is, whatever. That's not in the Constitution. They shall expand existing federal campaigns and other efforts to promote safe storage of firearms. So they're essentially going to throw money at different campaigns. They're probably going to give money to people. A lot of this is a money laundering scheme to give to companies, startup companies like the Bloombergs and all those folks out there that are like rapist anti-guns. They have this desire to do nothing but take guns away from honest, law-abiding Americans. This is their way to fund those little pet projects, because you're going to get Johnny Wants the World to Be Safe company now that's going to pop up, and they're going to get grants and funding from the federal government to run cute little ads to say, hey, guns are bad. Oh, by the way, store them safely. And that's how they're going to make their money. So it's unfortunate that we're going to see more proliferating of our guns taken from our money taken from us because they want to give it to idiots like this. Let's see. Yeah, this is a good one right here. This one, man, this one here is one of them that bothers me. Okay, I'm going to read the whole thing. The Secretary of Defense, the Attorney General, Secretary of Homeland Security, Secretary of Health and Human Services, including through the Surgeon General of the United States, and the Secretary of Education, again, should not be a thing, shall undertake efforts to encourage effective use of extreme risk protection orders, red flag laws. They even call their own red flag gun laws now, partnering with law enforcement, healthcare providers, educators, and other community leaders. Okay. Let me highlight these words so you know why this bothers me so much. They're saying all these organizations shall undertake, quote, efforts to encourage. And let me just highlight that word right there. They are giving money to organizations, government and likely non-government. Just like I said, these Bloomberg groups are probably going to be the ones that are going to get the paychecks for this, to encourage effective use of extreme risk protection orders. What that means is they are going to pay money, your taxpayer money, using your taxpayer money to run newspaper ads, television ads, signs on the side of buses, signs on bus stops, radio commercials, commercials during the Super Bowl, to try to encourage you, to let you know and educate you, to inform you that you need to take advantage of the fact that you can actually make sure that somebody you don't like or have an issue with, you can report them and quite possibly have their firearms confiscated from them illegally. Because the government is telling you right here that they are mounting an effort using your taxpayer dollars, and mine, by the way, to run a campaign encouraging people that they need to be reporting people. That is a dastardly thing. That's evil on its face. Think about this. You come home from work. You've worked your butt off all day long. I don't care what you do. You're tired. We all get tired in different levels of work. You come home, you're tired, you sit down. Maybe you go take a shower, you hop in your chair, you sit down with a warm meal of whatever, maybe grab a cold beer, and then your door gets kicked in. The money you just worked for that you're tired from, a portion of that money allowed these people to kick your door in. The reason your door got kicked in is because your next door neighbor, who has never liked you because he doesn't like to work and you work, and he's envious of everything that you have. He doesn't like the fact that you complain to him because his grass is too tall. And last weekend, when you cut your grass, you blew grass onto his property, some of your cut grass as you were cutting your grass. And when he told you something about it, you gave him the middle finger. Why? Because you can. It's freedom of speech, right? So he's mad about that. He's had enough. He gets drunk or he gets hopped up on meth. He calls because he just sees this commercial on television that the Biden administration is using your money to pay for, saying, hey, you got a problem with your neighbor? You think your neighbor is a danger to you or maybe a danger to himself? Call this number. You can do so anonymously. Now, you're obviously going to have to say who you are because they're claiming that it's not going to be an anonymous call. I just want to put that out there. I'm not lying like they do. But even if you do give your name, guess what? You have that outside chance that they may kick your neighbor's door in and go confiscate his guns. Not ask him anything. He gets to answer questions after they kick his door in and take him to jail and confiscate his guns. He gets to beg to a court system now as to why you're the crazy one because you called in saying that I blew grass on his land. He said something about it and I gave him the finger. Well, who's to decide whether or not you giving somebody the finger is a danger to somebody or yourself? Who knows? The judge is going to be the one determining that. And this is after they've already taken your guns. So at this point, you're not really defending yourself. You're out there trying to prove that you're not a bad person. This is a bad thing. This is a really bad one. This one scares me, the fact that they are coming out and saying that, okay, our plan that we passed last year already had money in it to bribe these states with taxpayer money to get people to rat out their neighbors for no good reason, just so we can say we're doing something. It's not working because I guess the American people are a lot of them are better than what we thought they were. So let's do this. Let's now run ads. Hey, remember when they were trying to convince you to I don't want to say the bad words here because some people might get offended, but stick a needle in your body that had something in it. Remember when they were trying to convince you to do that? Remember they were giving away $100 at a time for that? Remember they were doing contests where you could get free stuff if you went and got the thing stuck into your arm with the medicine that they made? Remember that? What's to say they don't start running little cool little contests where, hey, every 10th person who rats out their neighbor gets a free government t-shirt or something like that? Don't put anything past these people. These people are putting this in there, telling you what they're going to do to your face. Just like I said earlier, tell me I'm wrong. And then I'll show you later on when it actually happens. I'll come back and say, I told you so, because I'm that kind of person. I'll do it. Let's see. This is another interesting one. Let me come down here to D. Okay, where is it? So I can highlight it. Is it further down? No, it's in D. Where are you there? Here we go. All the way down to gun violence. Okay. I'm going to start out briefly, go over the front of this one. The Attorney General, Secretary of Health, blah, 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 and the heads of other agencies, as appropriate, which means any agency who wants to get involved, shall develop a proposal for the president and submit it no later than September 15th of this year on how the federal government can better support the recovery, mental health, and other needs of survivors of gun violence, families of victims and survivors of gun violence, first responders to indicate incidents of gun violence, and communities affected by gun violence. Here again, this is all a money grab, by the way. That's all what this is. Here again, they're justifying in their own words how they're going to take your money and they're going to funnel it in these communities. This is, again, another way to bribe people for different things, to do things in their community and to be anti-gun. They're making this into a business where now these local areas will be profitable and make money off of the federal government giving them money so that they can, quote, support recovery, mental health, and other needs of survivors of gun violence. So if there's any kind of what they are calling gun violence, let's not forget, they call everything involving a gun violence. We're not talking about their, quote, mass shootings. That's not what they're determining right here. They're saying gun violence, period. So if anything happens, if your child finds a gun and accidentally it goes off, they are considering that gun violence. So now they're going to get involved. They're going to throw grant money and all kind of other stuff at these small little dinky organizations that are used to scamming people. And they're going to put these really cushy little programs together to help survivors of gun violence and families of victims and survivors of gun violence. So this is essentially a way to pay people to make other people feel better about some kind of, quote, tragedy in their life with your money. Let's see, under E. This one, I can't wait to know more about this one because something's not right here. You'll see what I'm talking about. Under E, it says, as Secretary of Defense, in consultation with the Attorney General and the Secretary of Homeland Security, shall develop and implement principles to further firearm and public safety practices through the Department of Defense acquisition of firearms consistent with applicable law. Shall develop and implement principles to further firearm and public safety practices. How many times have we heard the anti-gun movement talk about gun safety? This is gun safety. I have gone on to every notable anti-gun group out there. Every single one of them, the Giffords law firm, the Brady people, all of Bloomberg's splintering organizations out there in the gun control movement. I've gone to all of them. And I've looked to see the ones that use the term gun safety, public safety, firearm safety, or anything like that, to see if they actually offer any real safety. And some of them I've even commented to them and sent them emails, hey, I'm looking for the safety section on your website, and I can't seem to find it. We all know that their intention is they use the word safety to make you feel good about it. It's a great word, right? Who wouldn't want gun safety, right? But their full intent is confiscation and banning. That's what they've meant all along. But they use these buzzwords because, hey, you'd be crazy to argue with that, right? We're passing a bill on gun safety. Why would you be against that, right? If you say it's a bill on banning guns, sounds a little more negative, right? It's not really something that everybody can get behind, but hey, gun safety, we can get behind that. But these people don't do anything with gun safety. Now they're putting it in writing and say they shall develop and implement principles to further firearm and public safety practices. Now, if they come out and they use my tax dollars to teach a child, not that guns are bad, but what to do if they find a loaded firearm or a firearm unattended, no adult around, if they do that like we do on the pro-gun side, we actually do that. You can go on almost any pro-gun site and you're probably going to find some kind of a program or something on there that's promoting actual safety of guns. So if they do this, I'm all ears. Not saying I'm going to support it, but I want to hear more. Because for once in my lifetime, if they're going to use my tax dollars for something that's actually a worthwhile cause, I will listen to what they have to say. Do I think they're actually going to do it? No. I don't have any confidence in them actually doing it. I'm just saying this doesn't make sense to me because I don't know what they really mean. If they say shall develop, implement principles to further firearm public safety practices, more than likely what that is, guns are bad. They put posters up saying guns are bad, don't touch guns, guns kill this many people, it's a bad thing, blah, 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 blah. That's very likely what we're looking at here, but they word it to where it sure gets your attention, right? If you're a good person and you truly want people to be safe, this will get your attention. Unfortunately, I think that it is an absolute lie, like probably everything else in here. But nevertheless, I thought it was worth pointing out. Okay, this one right here, the Secretary of Transportation. Isn't the Secretary of Transportation the gay guy, Butt Edge? I'm pretty sure he's the Secretary of Transportation. Yeah, great. Let's include him in here, right? Inclusion. Yay! We got a gay guy in here. In consultation with the Department of Justice, shall work to reduce. Come on, man. Shall work to reduce the loss or theft of firearms during shipment between FFLs and to improve reporting of such losses or thefts, including by engaging with carriers and shippers. Let's take this a little bit at a time. This is a one-word sentence, and it is full of bull. First, shall work to reduce the loss or theft of firearms during shipment between FFLs. Okay. First of all, we have a token hire as the Secretary of Transportation. He was only hired because he's gay. The guy has no record. He was a mayor of a little town in Indiana. What was it where Notre Dame is? Whatever that place is. He was mayor there. Whoop-de-doo. Small town. It's not a big town. The guy has no accomplishments. His only accomplishment is having a boyfriend and a husband. That's his biggest in the White House's eyes. That's his accomplishment. Yay, he's a gay guy. Hire him. The dude's not qualified. He's got no background. He's not capable of doing anything. He has proven that. During COVID, trains were getting robbed left and right as they sat on these tracks waiting to go to their final destination or en route to their destinations. Thieves were busting open these rail cars and stealing guns by the hundreds and the thousands. Federal government loves trains. They love trains. They would love to get rid of all cars and have all of us ride to work on trains. They love trains. Their trains were getting robbed, not by us, by their voting constituents. And they were pilfering through all these guns and taking what they wanted. Major failure on Secretary Token hire. Major failure. The guy was showing that he was not capable of taking over this job or performing this job in the least little bit. Then we have the Ohio train derailment debacle. This guy was missing in action the whole time. It wasn't until after dogs and fish and chickens were dropping dead before this guy finally showed up over there and then acted like he was being bothered because he was being asked why he hadn't been there yet. So this guy's been just a colossal failure at every turn, but he's gay. Yay, gay guy. Check mark, check the box. So now this guy is going to work to reduce the loss or theft of firearms during shipment between FFLs. You know what's going to happen here? This is all going to go back on the FFLs. They're going to get blamed for this. That's all that's going to happen. They're not going to reduce loss or theft. They're going to point blame at these FFLs. They're going to get them in trouble. Let's move on to the next part of the sentence. Improve reporting of such losses or thefts. Again, this is going to be a way to point back at those FFLs. They're talking about reporting, right? Remember what we just talked about making these things public? So now when a gun gets lost during a transfer or mail or any kind of a transportation issue, they're going to have a public record of that. So it goes into the FFL's file as a negative mark against them. So they'll either lose their FFL because of this improved reporting on such losses and thefts, or again, like I stated earlier, they will not be getting the loans that they're applying for and things of that nature. And last but not least, including by engaging with carriers and shippers. How many of us put videos out last year and the year before on the crap UPS and FedEx and all these other carriers were doing? How these carriers were, excuse me, damaging and destroying property of gun companies because they were getting pressure from the federal government to do that. Now they're telling you right here that they're going to engage with carriers and shippers. So that means they're going to get more strict with these carriers and shippers, and now put pressure on them to not do business with gun companies. Again, if you don't see the common theme right now, it's to put gun companies, and more specifically, the gun stores, out of business. If you don't have anyone to sell your guns, then the gun companies actually go away, the gun manufacturers. Right now, this type of stuff doesn't directly affect in any kind of really harmful way the gun manufacturers, because they've got the money, they've got the resources to rebound and whatever. These mom and pop shops out there that need to sell 5 guns a day or 25 to 50 guns a week in order to make rent, those are the ones that will be suffering through all these things. This is a clear-cut indicator that the Biden administration is waging war on these small FFLs in order to put them out of business. Let me move on, guys. I don't have much left. I'm sorry I'm taking this long. I did not want to take up too much of your time tonight, but this is very important to me. Let's see. Here we go. This very next one. Federal Trade Commission is encouraged to issue a public report analyzing how gun manufacturers market firearms to minors and how such manufacturers market firearms to civilians, including through the use of military imagery. Okay. I was on a friend's live stream earlier, John Crump, and I made this comment, and I'm going to share that with you guys here. Okay. They're going to want to issue a public report analyzing how gun manufacturers market firearms to minors, right? The first time I think I ever saw a gun on TV, other than a show, like a commercial I'm talking about, which, by the way, those gun manufacturers aren't really on TV hardly at all anymore. But nevertheless, first time I ever saw a firearm in a way that was appealing to me as a young person, as a kid, as a child, was either an Army, Navy, Air Force, or Marine commercial, a recruiting commercial. Those recruiting commercials are designed to get young people's attention. They're designed to make everything that the military does look cool. They're designed to entice you into wanting to join. And there are firearms and munitions littered throughout their commercials because they're cool to kids. They look cool. I don't see anybody talking about that. I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm just saying, if we're sitting here trying to make this lie up about gun manufacturers marketing to minors, which they don't. I happen to know many gun manufacturers, and they actually steer as far away as they can from trying to appeal to a kid. Now, do they want young adults to buy their guns? Absolutely they do. They want you to buy guns the right way and the legal way that's supposed to be bought, carried, whatever. But they're not trying to market to a 6-year-old. They never have. They've just never done that. This is an outright lie that they even imply that. And they say, and such manufacturers market firearms to civilians. Excuse me. Let me back up. It's your poor gun manufacturers, and how such manufacturers market firearms also to civilians, including through the use of military imagery. Again, I go back to the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines commercials. You know, they're the ones that are promoting that, giving that cool look of firearms out there. But speaking to this one, manufacture or market firearms to civilians, including through the use of military imagery, I've never seen a commercial that was geared at me, using military imagery. Now, I understand that a lot of politicians in Washington, D.C. have never done anything tactical, whether it's military, law enforcement, or just training like most of us do. So everything looks military to them. If you see me carrying my gun range bag and carrying a gun on my side at the range, none of that is military issued gear. None of it's probably mil spec. None of it is. Maybe the firearm to a certain degree, but none of my gear is. I don't tack out when I go. This is what I wear when I go to the range. So if I'm wearing this, which is camouflage, ooh, military, and I actually have work boots that I wear to the range, but to them, I might look tacked out. They would think that I'm dressed all tactical going to the range when that's what I wear to church, to the grocery store, to a restaurant, to my in-laws' house to eat Christmas dinner. It's the same stuff. So I don't understand why they're so hell bent on saying that everything is military imagery. I've never looked at an ad that included actual military imagery. I'm not talking about, again, how I look. I'm not military and I don't look it. You guys know that. But I've not once seen an ad that included military stuff that made me want to buy that. If I saw an ad that had military people in it that I knew by looking at them, I can tell what is military government issued stuff. They're not appealing to me. In other words, they're not targeting me because they know that those of us who buy guns are not turned on by, that's not our thing. If you're a military guy, you're going to get different publications that are more geared towards that whole tacked out military look. So again, just because I own a plate carrier doesn't mean that it's military stuff. That's for my own personal protection. So this is all bull, including the use of military imagery. What they call military imagery is all subjective. They think it looks military, but it's not. So they're going to sit here and try to say these people are using military imagery to sell their products. And it's probably a guy with 5'11" pants on, Victos jacket, and maybe a CMMG cap like what I've got on right now. That's what they're going to call military imagery. So again, they're being deceptive. They're trying to trick the American public. And once again, the Biden administration has done nothing more than fail people and make them not trust them. That's the end of it, guys. That's all that I have on here. I wanted you guys to really see everything that the Biden administration is doing. I think that what they're trying to do is despicable because they're trying to, they're sitting here over in this place in, again, Monterey Park, California, I guess it was. And the whole purpose of being there was so that they could sit here and say, hey, some Asians were shot over here. And they even went so far as to imply that it was racism when it was an Asian guy that shot the Asians. I don't know how that's racist. Where does that fit in at? Maybe the gun manufacturer is assumed to be racist because the gun manufacturer built a gun that he thought maybe he marketed using military imagery that some Asian guy might buy and shoot other Asians with. So bang, that was the ultimate goal all along. And he did it. Yay, victory. So they go over there to have this stupid little meeting today, and they just regurgitate all these lies out there. My closing point in all of this is there's nothing really in here that's going to happen. It's all anti-gun. It's all unconstitutional. The problem is this is their way to pilfer the American public and take their money from them. Is there anything in here that's really going to, there's no guns being taken away. They talked about assault weapons ban in here throughout it. And they talked about a number of other things that they wish they could do. But since we can't do it, we're going to pass this instead. So yes, are there infringements in here? Absolutely. But there's nothing like a stabilizing brace thing or a bump stock thing or any real bans on anything. The biggest problems in here, yes, they're not passing any new laws. What they're doing, they're encouraging the ATF. The main thing in here is they're encouraging the ATF to put more FFLs out of business. That's the gist of what this whole thing was. It's got nothing to do directly with you and I, the average everyday Joe gun owner. It's got everything to do with FFLs now. They are already under so much pressure. The ATF has broken records out there, putting these gun businesses out of business. And this is a very clear indicator that they're not satisfied. They're going to continue to do more, and they're going to do everything they can to put these gun companies out of business. I will say this like I have always said it, guys. Please support your local gun shops. I don't frown on the big box stores that still sell guns. A viewer of mine said that Academy now is not selling AR-15s. He went in to buy an AR-10 and they told him they didn't sell them anymore and they took them off the website. I haven't confirmed that yet, but he said that. But if a big box store is selling, all guns, I'm not going to tell you not to support them, but I would encourage you to support the mom and pops because the academies, they ain't going out of business. The ATF ain't looking at Academy. The ATF ain't going to Cabela's. They're not trying to put those guys out of business. I'm not saying they're the bad guys. They are still selling guns. Good for them. That's great. And I've bought guns from the big box stores before. But those guys are not going out of business. Those guys are not going to have trouble feeding their families and making ends meet and paying their mortgage in this horrible economy right now. You know who will? They're going to make these FFLs out there realize some of these FFLs will go out of business on their own because they're going to realize it ain't worth it for the little bit of money that they're making. But they're trying their best to put these FFLs, these small ones, out of business because at some point they're going to convince through virtue signaling all these big box stores, they're going to convince them not to sell guns anymore. So they can ultimately do everything they want to do if they can put the small mom and pops out of business and then eventually convince those FFLs, those big ones, the big box store FFLs, to go out of business using the ESG scoring system I talked about earlier or just virtue signaling. Hey, look, Cabela's, we had another mass shooting. So be really good if you didn't sell AR-15s anymore because, it's a really bad look on y'all. And these people will fall for it. So they'll stop selling a lot of these firearms and maybe firearms, period, like Walmart has to any of us. So once those big box ones go away and your FFLs go away, your small mom and pops, who's going to sell guns to you? They're already trying to push this universal background check thing. You're not going to be able to buy guns from anybody. The ultimate goal is if they can't stop you from buying guns, they can stop people from selling you guns. And I think that's ultimately what they're trying to do with this whole executive order thing right here. Guys, I hope you have a good weekend or a good week. I wanted to put this out. Again, sorry it went a little bit over. And you guys are hanging out with me, and I really appreciate that. But I wanted you all to see a lot of the stuff that's going on in here. If you would share this video, it's about as good a breakdown as I can do in such a short period of time. And I just like for more people to hear about this. So if you could share the video, let people know what's going on. And I'm going to catch up with you guys with a video tomorrow. Thanks, guys. I enjoyed my time with you all. Couldn't take any questions. I apologize for that, but I will definitely do that on our next live stream. Because again, I know I ran a little long. I hate wasting your time on a weeknight, fellas and ladies. So I do appreciate you spending your time with me, guys. We're going to see you next time.